All right, friends, welcome back again to another episode of Tactical Enlightenment. Our YouTube channel is dedicated to all things Bannerlord related, and we are doing another episode today. In fact, today we have surpassed Netflix for the total amount of series currently active on our channel. We are going to do a bit of an episode by request. In fact, it is by direct request. This was requested to me by one of our highest supporting Patreon members, and it's been something in the back of my mind as well, and so we're going to roll with it. We are going to test Tier 6 units today. After the 1.38 changes to the Battanians and the Khazate Khans, I think the Tier 6 units are pretty damn well balanced, and this will be the first interesting battle here. Now, prior to these patches, in other words, Bannerlord from 6 months ago, the Battanian Fian Champs would destroy Bannerknights in the open field. Quite honestly, we complained, right? We posted several videos on YouTube. Finally, Tailworlds has come through, and they do a lot better job with their initial spears. Right now, we'll speed through a lot of these battles. We'll just kind of watch them on fast forward. You don't need to watch every single moment, but I do want to watch certain moments of certain battles here. So we're going to use the RTS mod and fly overhead like this, and we will also zoom in occasionally, but a lot of this we're just going to speed through and play these on 3x speed. That way we can go through a lot of battles and see a lot of material here. Now this is, I gotta say, I'm a little bit like a proud papa. We were one of the prominent loud voices on YouTube the last 12 months saying Spear Cavalry and Bannerlords suck. They get crushed by archers everywhere, and I gotta say Tailworlds has come through. In fact, we're part of a Discord where there are Tailworlds developers and liaisons to the company, and it's very clear that they listened. In fact, one of the guys reached out with a comment basically saying, I think you're going to love what Cavalry do with the new patch. And indeed, I do. I won't name the fella. I might have already overstepped my bounds. Hopefully not. The bottom line, though, is that Tailworlds is working with the public, with content creators to make improvements to the game. And I think this is a really good result. I think Bannerknights are supposed to win in the open against Fian Champs, right? After all, if they can't win in the open, tell me where they're going to win, right? That's a scenario where they really need to win. All right, so let's try a series of different battles here today. Some of these I'll micromanage, some of these I'll control. We're going to try the Aserai Vanguard Faris. I've got a sneaky suspicion that the Aserai Vanguard Faris is the best new Tier 6 in the game. I used to love the Aserai Vanguard Faris, and I'll talk about why I think they're going to be the best here in a minute. But let's start with Khazate against, let's start with the two nerfed sad face Tier 6 units. Now, I think most people agree that these units should have been nerfed. However, I used to feel before that the Fian Champs were superior in the open field, and I suspect that's still going to be the case. It must be the use of the bow and the fact that they're standing flat-footed, whereas the Khazate horse archers here, the Khans guards, are moving. They're less accurate, and the Fian Champs are working them here something fierce. My suspicion also is that the worst Tier 6 now, ironically, is the Imperial Elite Cataphract, partly because of their weapon load, partly because they don't, on horse, they don't use their shield. I think that's going to be death on wheels versus all these other Tier 6, which is not to say that that makes them worthless, right? They're really good on foot. They're excellent in siege. They have a lot of uses. It's just not charging Fian Champs, etc. All right, so we're going to, some of these I'm going to be in charge, and some of these we will have the sergeant be in charge and just kind of see what happens. A few of these I do want to experiment a little bit. Here I'm just going to take charge of the Khans guards and try a few things and say, okay, if I was in charge and I had to win this battle, what would I do? Now, we're also not going to spend 12 minutes on each battle and methodically plot it out, right? We're just going to try some broad tactics to see if we can't improve a little bit on just charge, right? And obviously, you're rarely going to have an army of 200 Khans guards or 200 Aserai Vanguard Faris, but some guys do, right? Some guys play like that. It's not the worst thing in the world just to have 200 Vanguard Faris or whatever. I just think it happens to be a pretty boring way to play, and it's an expensive way to play, right? Your troops are really costly. Your daily upkeep is off the charts, right? If you have 200 Khans guards or whatever it is. All right, so we're going to try to get a frontal shot here on the enemy. I'm going to move up one big group of Khans guards while I try to sort of flank, strafe, and bump the Khans guards from the side, right? We're going to, or excuse me, the Fian Champs with another division. I'm trying to drag this other division of Khans guards close enough to interrupt a lot of these archers, with the theory being if they're banged around, shot, and then run over by horses, that the rest of those archers can really work, but the death spam does not look good, right? In fact, we're already down almost half of our units. These guys are shooting, but units on a horse are less accurate than units off a horse, and we're getting roasted something fierce here. I must say that even after the changes, I still think the Fian Champions are probably the second best Tier 6 unit in the game. They are absolutely lethal, especially when used correctly. And I do wonder about the Khazate, right? Maybe the Khazate is the worst kingdom after this change, right? You take their powerhouse unit and you nerf it like this. It's interesting. We'll do tests, of course, with the Khazate against Bannerknights and stuff like that. I'm just going to whip through these, and I'll try to summarize things and give you my broad thoughts as we go. I've been doing these kind of tests now for 6 to 12 months. Guys like Strat Gaming Guy, other YouTube Bannerlord addicts out here are doing this kind of data, and what can you say about it, right? The bottom line is it looks like the Khazate is cooked in this kind of a situation. Now, used correctly, they're going to be lethal. But I had to run this one more time because I was curious if that was an aberration. They're getting demolished by the Fian Champions here. I mean, it's a complete massacre. And there's no captains here, right? It's not like their captain is providing a huge amount of perks and whatnot to the enemy. It's just Fian Champions doing Fian Champion type stuff. All right, so let's talk about my favorite unit, or at least what may become the best Tier 6 unit in the game. I got a sneaky suspicion. How about this? I'll bet you guys $5, and this is without testing. The reason I think that the Vanguard Faris is going to be better is twofold. First, well, it's actually threefold. First, before the patch, they did really well against the Fian Champs and Khans guards. They didn't win, but they consistently did pretty well. The second and third reasons is, first, Spear Cavalry do better in Bannerlord. We already know that, right? That came with the 1.3 patch. What else got improved? Javelin accuracy, right? These guys have deadly javelins, and I think you add those things together, you have three different factors. The Fian Champs are nerfed, and the Aserai Vanguard Faris essentially got two boosts. Not only are their javelins going to be way more accurate and deadly, and they're doing pretty well, but they're going to turn to their spears here soon, and I think it's just going to eat these Fian Champs up. It's at least going to be a close fight. They're circling. Maybe I was wrong, I guess. It's really close. It looks like they're winning, right? It's really close, but it looks like they're winning. And they're kind of acting like doofuses. Half of them are running off the map. I think we can actually do better than this. Did they just rout? No, they're cycle charging. They're out of javelins at this stage, right? The initial flush is javelins. We talk about it on the channel all the time. The key to fighting the Aserai is to make sure that you survive that first 30 seconds, all of those javelins, and they won, right? So the Fian Champions pushed aside, albeit a very close fight here. I think we can do better than that, right? So let's try the same circumstances here, and we're going to do just some baseline tactics. I'm going to try to distract with the shield division and then circle from behind here. We're going to do the old prison attack here, right? We're going to keep our victim occupied from the front, and then we're going to come in from behind here and just totally... Well, I better not use those words. We're going to just totally mangle them. We've been getting rated X here on the channel, getting deep trouble with the algorithm. All right, so a line of cavalry in the front, and notice it's a small line. We don't want to use a defensive division with 80% of our units, but I don't mind using a quarter of our units here to sort of hold up their shield while the rest of us sneak in for a charge attack. Let's see if this works. So they barely won before. If we can, win significantly here, I would say this tactic has merit. God, I gotta stay alive here. The Fian Champs are still absolutely lethal. Nobody should get the wrong idea that they're weak all of a sudden. All right, let's move shields in here and distract. And we've got a beautiful flank. Our units came in with almost not a single death, and now the javelins start flying. Let's pull this second division right through the enemy ranks. That's some good looking death spam. As they focus on our center line there, now we can have them charge. And now I think everybody can just charge, right? We have the enemy surrounded. Not only that, but we closed with very few casualties. It looks pretty good. It looks really good. And it looks outstanding, right? We mangled these Fian Champs. Away they go. They're running into the sunset, and we have more than half of our Vanguard Faris alive, I think you can definitively call that a good strategy. Now, in a regular battle, I would have your weak cavalry form that shield out in front and then come from behind with the Vanguard Faris, right? Use your decimating, powerful units to come from behind and use your weak units and tell them, you guys get to get shot while we get all the glory, right? Charging behind. I would use your personal Vanguard, pun intended, in that situation, right? Your captain leading the Vanguard Faris, and I bet you just decimate foes in that kind of a situation. All right, so here, I want a little bit more space. Whoops. We'll do a little bit of editing here. This is archers. All right, a little bit of editing there. The previous battle, I snafu. We had set it up. I was trying to do Khans guards against Vanguard Faris, and instead I had the tier 4 Khazate archer because I clicked the wrong button in the custom battle. All right, here we go. So again, let's try the distracting shield wall in front. And I'm a fan of this, right? The guys that visit the channel on a regular basis, they know that I'm a fan of this. I like having a defensive unit in Bannerlord. Anything to attract the attention of the enemy. And then, you know, an offensive unit that once enough of the enemy is distracted, and we're also going to be able to pinch the horse archers here. They're not going to be able to circle because of the spot. They're kind of splitting. Let's see what they do here. We're clamping in right through the middle of their formation. And now we're following them with, they turned around, worst thing they could have done. Now they're getting pounded with javelins. And we've got them on the run. They can't shoot that direction. Now they're getting surrounded. They're probably going to get a lot of melee kills because it's still Khans guards. You don't want to get hit by their glaive. But we've got the enemy on the run here. It's kind of a back and forth battle. We got him, though. You can just tell. You can tell the direction. You can tell from the death span that this battle is over. And another, you know, it's a little bit like, I feel like Mike Tyson's boxing coach. I feel like, you know, I definitely, Mike Tyson, I should know the guy's name. He had a legendary manager coach in the 80s. You guys are like, who the hell's Mike Tyson? He had a great coach, Customato. How did I forget his name? So he had a great coach, and you know, I feel a little bit like him. Like, yeah, well, we knew they were going to win. Like when you have this kind of unit with these kind of advantages, you sort of expect to win. Now we're racking up wins with the Vanguard Faris, and I think this is also going to be a victory, right? The tough charging Druzhinniks, but I think they're going to get drilled by high-speed javelins. Let's zoom in here and see if we can pick up any of the carnage. So the javelins should be here. They come. And I can already see, you can see horsemen and shields flying all over the place. The javelins are so deadly now. And here's the other thing too. There's some guys that are engaging in melee, and the Vanguard Faris are a tick below, but a lot of them are circling, right? And they're getting behind. It's the old prison attack, right? They're getting behind. Oh, and it's a massacre here. They're carving apart the Druzhinnik. And this battle is over. And a massacre, right? Customato tapping the shoulder of Mike Tyson. Way to go, kid. Destroyed another one here. And I think at this stage, we have our new champion of Bannerlord. And, you know, unfortunately, maybe they're next to be nerfed. I actually mentioned this in the Botanian episode where we covered the nerf. And I mentioned that one of the things that happens in a game like this, where it's already pretty balanced, is if you nerf units, you unintentionally, by definition, strengthen other units, right? Let's try a ridiculous challenge here. Now they're outnumbered by, what, 25%? I don't know if we can win this, but if we can win this, this will be pretty resounding, right? These are Bannerknights. Bannerknights are definitely good units with the changes to 1.36, 1.38. Here come the javelins flying. But it's not this that kills the enemy. It softens them up. It breaks shields. Maybe it hits some guys. I saw a guy get drilled right there. I think it's the circling that is going to really mangle these Bannerknights right there. The Bannerknights are 6 deep here, which is not very effective for fighting, right? And the next thing you know, look at like a washing machine. They're on a spin cycle here, and they're behind him, and you can just see. Again, we'll zoom in here. You can see these Bannerknights are facing the other direction, fighting, and they are being shredded from behind by Vanguard Faris. This is precisely what I was wondering about. And I've always had a soft spot for the Vanguard Faris. I've said on the channel for a very long time that I think the two strongest kingdoms were Botania and the Aserai because of projectiles. It's actually gotten close. I'm not surprised about that, and that is because if you're using the Vanguard Faris, it's important to know that their melee skills are a tick below the other tier 6. And they had to be, right? Because think about it. They definitely have the best ranged weapon. I mean, I guess you could say Khans guards, but the javelins have way higher killing power, right? A javelin sometimes will one-shot another tier 6 unit. So they have to be much weaker in melee. But it's still victory, and that was outnumbered 25% with just charge. I didn't do anything. I think we're about to witness something sad here. This is something, again, 1% chance Tail Worlds is listening. The Imperial Elite Cataphract is a good unit. They're armored to the teeth. They have good stats. The problem is, though, is they use a Courser lance in this situation. Well, what do you think is going to happen when 150 javelins hit them? Here comes the green, right? It just flushed. Like 50 of them insta-died. Now they're getting circled on. Now, they'll fight well in melee, right? They're switching to their sword and shield now that they're in melee. But it's too late, right? They lost 100 in the first 20 seconds of this skirmish. And barring a late comeback here, this shit's over. And again, they're outnumbering the Vanguard Faris 25%. So, not going to happen. Ouch. I mean, again, you know, the champion is pretty clear. They haven't lost to anybody. The Vanguard Faris so far is undefeated. They've beat everybody. They beat the Khans Guard. They beat the Fian Champs. And now I can't help but wonder if I can beat them, right? Can a human defeat the Vanguard Faris? One of the things that the AI does really well is throw javelins from a horse. Anybody who's been one shot with their character by like a Sturgian hardened brigand or something like that, especially with the changes to 1.3. If you haven't played Bannerlord in a year, you are in for a rude awakening when it comes to ranged weapons. You are going to be shocked with how accurate ranged weapons are. You can be on your horse galloping, you can be zigzagging, and you're still going to get smoked from your horse. And one shot by a Sturgian hardened brigand. It's another thing, again, I'm not sure, you know, I hate saying they should nerf this, nerf that, because of course the more nerfs you do, you know, the more you enable other unbalanced problems. But at least for the short term, ranged weapons are king in Bannerlord. You know, they nerfed Fian Champions, but that doesn't mean that sharpshooters aren't bad, right? I think sharpshooters are going to be badass now, right? Now that their local rival is knocked down a peg, right? Sharpshooters are going to do pretty well against Fian Champions. And I'm going to try to get to good ground here. We're running 3 divisions because I want to run an Iron Cross formation. It's an old tactic I used to use. I'm not sure we're going to be able to make it there, though. They're closing so fast. Actually, I'm kind of caught with my pants down here. My butt's sticking out. We're going to take a javelin right in the sphincter if I'm not quick. Yeah, we're not going to be able to form any formations. We'll fight this again because this is a bit of a debacle. Let's see what happens here, though. So the AI throws javelins very well. It shoots arrows very well, so we are getting some kills. But man, their javelin throws are so accurate, and it's 1 or 2 shot in European champions. The javelins thrown from the Vanguard Faris will 2-shot almost every unit on your side, right? In many cases, like a headshot's for sure fatal. And we got blown up here. I feel humbled, but in reality, it's just the game mechanics. The Aserai Vanguard, I'm just going to say it at this stage of this episode, the Aserai Vanguard Faris is the new best unit in Bannerlord. And I'll say period. I'll put period at the end of it. Now, you can argue the Huskarl, right? We haven't tested, but how do you think a static melee unit is going to do against a huge circling mass of horses throwing lethal javelins with high degrees of accuracy? It's not going to go well, right? Now, in theory, maybe if you formed a square and held out long enough, it might work, right? If you were using, now you're not really going to fight, right, Nord against the Aserai in most campaigns, but if you did, maybe in theory 2 or 3 squares you could hold out through the javelin waves and survive, but boy is it going to be a barrage, right, that you're assaulted with. And if we can't win here, then, you know, I'm willing to say definitively this is the new best unit in the game. And we don't do this. I don't make these episodes, especially this kind of an episode, to say All these units need to be nerfed because I got to be honest, after the changes here to the Bannerknights, Spear Cavalry, and after the nerf now to the Khans Guards and Fian Champion, and again, I'm not getting kickbacks from Tail Worlds. I'll say this, I think the game is as balanced right now as it's ever been. I think the balance is, I don't know if there is perfect balance. We'll just say it's nearly perfectly balanced. If archers were maybe a little bit less deadly, if javelin throwers were a little bit more wild and a lot of the javelins ended up in the dirt, maybe it'd be perfect. But I can't win here. I've got my Fian Champs and their feet are planted and they're laying on the dirt here. We got smoked again. I mean, well, what can you say about it? We got blown up here. So, more testing is coming, fellas. We are going to get custom battles with Nords. Tail Worlds has said that that's something they're working on. So, we're going to test the Nords. But what can you say, right? The new best unit in Bannerlord, the Aserai Vanguard Faris. Now, if you want to see more from the channel or more tests, now's your time to subscribe. Please hit that like button on the way out, friends. And I will see you next time.